What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and what you should be looking out for the future. I'm also going to do a very in-depth analysis of SPY right now and talk about some very important levels that are coming up that could actually affect Tesla big time. This also correlates with the QQQ. That's why it's very important, as the market does have a tendency of moving very similarly, and this will in turn affect Tesla once again. Now, before I break anything down about what these levels are, what's going on with the market, are we about to see a crash or not, what you should be watching for, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $3,000. And the best part is, any could be a free Tesla share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 1 week. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. When it comes to Tesla, excuse me, sorry guys. When it comes to Tesla from a technical standpoint, this is actually looking a little bit better than before, getting this really nice bounce off this 180 support. We have a long wick right there showing signs of a reversal, and we could be forming an inverse head and shoulders and trying to push up from here on out. Now, the news about the price cuts was a little negative. It might actually cause Tesla to cool off a little more, but it could bounce regardless of that. And I do believe the technicals are now dominating and likely going to help Tesla continue to pump back above 190. This will also depend on the CPI report that comes out on Wednesday. So please be ready for all of this news. Until then, I still believe Tesla has the potential to try to base and hold up at these levels and essentially try to continue pushing above 190 very soon. But the real question is, what about the longer term for Tesla? What about the much longer term future, about the markets given the current fundamentals that are going on? Obviously, fundamentals for the market are still weak. You have to consider the fact that inflation is very high. The Fed is going to continue to raise rates and keep them high for an extended period of time. On top of that, demand is slowing down in the economy as a whole because unemployment is likely going to start going up from here on out. We're starting to see signs of that looking at the current initial jobless claims and jobs reports coming out for the month of April so far. And as time goes on, we're just seeing every indicator, yield curve, or whatever you want to use, suggesting a recession is coming. It's almost inevitable at this point, and we're most likely actually in one, in my opinion. Now, the market has never crashed or like bottomed before a recession started. Never in history has that happened, which tells me there could be more downside coming. However, I want to note that given the way the market moves based off manipulation, given how the market interprets data and information, it can make it very difficult to predict exactly when this potential downturn is going to come. It's very hard to predict. One issue I see for the bears is you could be right about all the fundamental analysis, right? Fundamentals have been getting weaker and weaker for the last few months, and yet the stock market continues to rally and hold up. A lot of that is happening because of the excessive shorting that has been going on for the last few months. There's so many short positions open for the next few weeks in April. Are the majority of people going to win? Most likely, the market makers are going to try to hold the market up for another week or so. But if there's a catalyst that comes out that's super strong, that's so strong that the market makers cannot hold us up, that could also cause capitulation and still cause a crash anyways. So it depends on what the catalysts are going to be and what the market interprets as a catalyst. I don't like talking way too far into the future, but I do know one thing, and that is that there is going to likely be downside coming. I want to warn you all about this. Why do I say that? Because during a recession, there's going to be a contraction. The PMI reports are getting worse. The overall uh, uh, economy is just slowing down, and earnings are going to get hurt big time for companies all over America. Earnings are going to get worse and worse. This is why a lot of banks have been they're basically trying really hard to issue dividends because this incentivizes everyday people or investors to hold onto their shares, to not capitulate, to not sell, because it's going to give the banks extra liquidity. That's what the companies want during a time like this. They want lots of cash. They want that extra leverage. That is why they've been issuing all these dividends and trying to hold investors, uh, in better positions. So far, I believe this whole banking crisis is not necessarily over. I think there are other banks still in very dire states, and I believe the curtain is just barely opening right now. I also want to note that as unemployment goes up, demand for a lot of things will go down. That is part of why, as I've shown you guys in the past, Tesla's inventory levels are just going up, which means less people are buying Teslas than before. That does not mean that Tesla's numbers will all be horrible from here on out. It does not guarantee that. They could still have good reports. It's just that it's going to become more difficult for them to sell at much higher quantities and get as many buyers. So that's why Tesla's been cutting prices. I just want to note that the entire economy is being affected. Apple, uh, Microsoft, and every company out there, and this will affect everyone. I also want to note that the US was very dominant when it came to our global position in our currency. We were the world's currency for many, many decades, and now many countries are coming together, united, and trying to break away from that. It's almost as if they consider it like a bind that's slowing them down as emerging markets are growing. This could also negatively affect us. There's also the debt ceiling. I mean, there's so many things that could actually be interpreted by the markets as things that could cause, a crash, even a pullback, whatever you want to call it. So, with that said, there's a matter of ambiguity. There's a matter of interpretation of the data by the markets, and that could affect how the market ends up moving, right? The market wants weaker jobs numbers. The market also wants some weakness for the time being, but it also wants weaker. We want less inflation numbers to be higher, basically, and it's really capricious. That's why I don't know exactly when this quote unquote crash will happen, but I do believe the odds do favor downside to eventually come. Now, when you look at SPY compared to Tesla, I want to note that SPY tends to be correlated with Tesla like this. They tend to run very similarly. You guys could see that. And then if you look at Tesla compared to the QQQ, the same thing, right? They came down together, they pushed up together. Tesla was outperforming for some time last year. They came down together, and Tesla was actually underperforming a lot when Elon Musk was selling during this time frame. Then they moved very similarly, except for recently where Tesla did not run as hard because of the fact that deliveries were not extremely strong. It ended up slowing down more than the QQQ, underperforming a bit. That's why the price-price ratio decreased a bit. So the real question now is, what's going to happen to Tesla for the longer term? I want to note that I just can't predict the future as accurately for like the longer term. It's very difficult with so much madness in this market. But please remember that Tesla does have these gaps down here. There are gaps down here in the 140s. There are some that are like even lower, but we don't have to worry too much about those just yet. We should just focus on this one right here. This is the main one. There's one down here around like the 147 area, 145. What could cause Tesla to fill that gap would be either negative earnings, the overall economy, and also how SPY and the QQQ perform. But in order for that to happen, we need to see the market crash, or at least tank relatively hard. Is the market going to do that? That's what brings me to this point right here. Is the market about to crash? The truth is, I don't truly know, and we have to see how it reacts to these particular levels. Now, some people have talked about this possible, like, inverse head and shoulders that's playing out on SPY. Sure, you can talk about that. But my question is, are we also respecting a giant head and shoulders as well? And that I don't truly know. Because if we are respecting this and the market crashes, this is going to drag Tesla down. But if it doesn't play out, if the market just keeps holding up, Tesla could also hold up for another month or so. So what's likely going to happen? What levels do we have to watch for? As I mentioned in my video from last week, we formed a possible left shoulder, a possible head. The head's top is around this 418 level on SPY. You could also look at this on SPX, but I like to use SPY because I do trade it typically. If we break 418 on SPY, then we could invalidate this head and shoulders. It could be like 3 drives up though, so that's another possibility. And if we fail to break this and we get rejected somewhere around like 415, 414, maybe 412 is the top, who knows? then we have the potential to come down more. And if we come down more, this once again could drag down Tesla because the QQQ and SPY have been trading very similarly. They're highly correlated. Maybe the QQQ is outperforming it, but they do tend to be green and red on the same days. That's what's very interesting about the market, how it moves almost as if it's in one algorithm. But here's what I'm watching for. Basically, I made a video a couple of days ago. I talked about this possible Elliott wave count on SPY. We have our 1 right here. The 2 came very close to our 0.786 retracement. Another push up. This was actually our 3, which was the very strong wave from last week when the market continued to squeeze a lot of shorts as I predicted. And I told you guys a pullback was coming. The pullback came, and I turned a little more bullish, and so far it's been playing out. And I'm thinking that we're either going to retest the 411s, or we're going to go all the way up and break the high we made previously from 3 to complete wave 5. That's a real possibility. But I don't know if we're going to break this high or not. That's why you have to watch this very carefully. If it breaks this high and it tries to keep going and going and going, there's a possibility it could just keep going. This could actually help Tesla continue to rally. And I don't think that's extremely likely given the current fundamentals, but it is a possibility we have to be prepared for. Now, if it goes up like this, and let's just say the bank earnings come out, they're very bad, CPI is horrible, it's a little hotter than expected, there's more negative earnings for companies like Apple and Microsoft, for example, and the banking crisis continues, and so many other things play out, like high inflation, etc. This could always still reverse, and recessionary fears could emerge, causing another big crash. Because if the head and shoulders plays out, right, SPY is going to most likely retest October lows, if not break them. And what are the levels to watch for on SPY? I know I mentioned this last week. I'm going to just briefly go over this. For SPY, make sure you guys watch our EMAs on the weekly because they're very important. So looking at the weekly chart, make sure, and this does relate to Tesla, by the way, if it breaks 377 to 380, that is going to be a bearish signal because a lot of algos will start selling. Then if it breaks 377 and also 375, it's going to likely retest the 200 EMA on the weekly. That's around the 264 level. It will be a little lower if we do drop from here. It does tend to drop a little bit. If we break below the 200 EMA on the weekly, SPY is going to crash to new lows. It's going to happen. If we break 360 to 364 around that zone, the market's going to crash. I want to warn you all like well in advance, excuse me, so you guys know what's about to happen just in case. And if that happens, everything or the large majority of stocks are going to fall. HYG is going to drop, NEO is going to drop, Microsoft's going to drop, Apple's going to drop. The QQQ is going to tank if that happens as well. Super important levels. For the QQQ, the 200 EMA is around 279. We're well above it. The QQQ has been performing very well. But once again, do not become too comfortable because fundamentals do not align with the moves the market's making. And once again, if all of this happens, if the market does crash, that could drag Tesla down to fill the gaps in the 140s. I know it's unfortunate. I'm not saying it's going to happen like tomorrow or next week or anything like that, but it is a possibility you have to be prepared for. Now, if that happens, if this does play out, we're likely going to see some downside, maybe some choppy price action around like April, similar to like this top here. I don't think the market will crash extremely hard in April as of right now because of the fact that there's so many puts out there. The market makers will try to fight, but there will likely be more selling pressure in May if this plays out. This is a big if. If the head and shoulders plays out, May is going to be the time for some major selling, a crash in the stock market. And then that's going to drag Tesla down to the mid 100s to even lower levels. However, if this thing holds up and we actually break these highs and we don't crash too hard, if that ends up happening, there's a chance that Tesla could still hold up and it won't be too bad. And the crash people are talking about, the quote unquote crash, would likely happen later on, right? Maybe going into like Q3, it could be more delayed. So I really don't know when or if the market will crash now. I don't know the exact timing. Nobody truly knows because it's so unpredictable thanks to the derivatives markets and the options chain. It's also because of the news cycle. I just don't truly know everything. But one thing I need to stress is we have to watch these levels. They're so important. It could break a little higher than this high and then end up tanking. That could be like a bull trap. I just don't truly know yet. But make sure you are prepared. Do not turn into a mega bull right now and think we're going to go to all-time highs. Do not turn into a mega bear right now. Don't think the market's going to crash to new lows starting next month. I'm neither a bull or a bear, guys. I simply watch the charts. That's something almost nobody says on the internet. Once again, I'm not a bull, I'm not a bear. I'm just watching the charts. What are the charts telling us? The charts are telling us the market's likely going to try to push and retest this high, this 411 zone, maybe break above it. There's no sign of a crash just yet, as of right now. But if we reverse, if we reject off this level and we look like we're still forming this head and shoulders, then I'm going to be very apprehensive. Then I'm going to be talking about that possibility because of what the charts tell me. It's based off what the charts tell me. And if that happens, right, be prepared for it. I want to prepare you in advance for it. Make sure you look at the levels I mentioned previously on SPY because it will affect Tesla. For Tesla, I think Tesla has the potential to once again continue to push for the next couple of days, next couple of trading days going into the end of the week, depending on CPI, of course. But if it does rally as we approach like earnings and we fill this gap, if earnings are not that great for Tesla because of all the price cuts that happened previously, and also because it did come a little bit short on deliveries, some expectations, some expectations were like for 20,000, other ones were like for 30,000. Either way, if Tesla comes short, then there could be more downside coming. After it gets one more pump, please be prepared for that. And also note that for the crash possibility, people are talking about Tesla crashing. As of right now, I'm not seeing Tesla crashing. I'm not seeing Tesla crashing to new lows. It's not happening right now. It's likely going to try to bounce and try to go up. But in the future, after earnings and after the market gives us more developments, if the market crashes, if that happens, if we get the signals, that could drag Tesla down later on. Right now, I'm not getting the signals of a crash, but they could come later on. So I want to prepare you well in advance. All right. It's also a little bit suspicious how some board members were selling their Tesla shares around the 192 to 202 zone. Could they know something? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Who knows? But it is, once again, suspicious. Now, when I talk about the crash in the markets, it's not because Apple's a bad company, Tesla's a bad company, of course. These are awesome, awesome companies, but fundamentals do dictate the markets. Monetary policy by the Fed dictates the markets. So does the banking situation and many other factors. Make sure you are prepared and you watch these particular levels on SPY very, very carefully. All right. Thank you all for listening. We have a huge week ahead of us. Let's see how SPY performs. If the head and shoulders continues to be respected, that could be not the best of signs for this market and will affect Tesla. Be prepared, my friends, my family out there. Remain calm, cool, and collected. Tesla to the moon, since the long-term future is still very bright. I'm still super bullish on Tesla long-term. It's going to break all-time highs, in my opinion, in the next upcoming years. I'm still very, very bullish, and peace out.